My persuasive speech is going to be over nuclear power plants. Nuclear power plants have many different purposes, and all of which are good and effective. The energy that is used to power your home can come from many different places, but according to DoSomething.org, only 20% of the energy is from nuclear power plants. The use of nuclear energy is very earth-friendly and is safe to all if everything is done correctly. The cost of using nuclear energy is much less as compared to coal or other forms of energy. Parts of a nuclear power plant are not as complicated as you would think. Some of the parts of a nuclear power plant are used to create energy, and all of which are important. The most important part when building a power plant is that you must have an adequate water source for cooling the steam, keeping the fuel rods from becoming too hot. So when power plants are built, they're usually close to an ocean or a very large river. The first part is the fuel rods, which are filled with uranium-235 that has to be mined out of the earth. Control rods are a significant part of the power plant because the control rods are what keeps the whole thing from becoming a bomb. The control rods can be raised and lowered to either speed up or slow down the reaction. The control rods must be made of a soft metal which can absorb the extra electrons that are emitted from the uranium, keeping the reaction under control. The reactor is what covers the fuel rods and control rods and is also full of water. Water is the next significant part. The water is the reactor core, and when the fuel rods are lowered in the water, they heat the water into steam, which then travels into the turbine and turns the turbine to power the generators. After the steam has passed through the turbine, it goes through a cooling chamber so that it turns back to its liquid state and can go back to the reactor core and be recycled. Now you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself that anything radioactive cannot be good for the environment. But here are some safety standards. The most important part of the power plant that keeps a radioactive wave from coming in contact with people is that the whole reactor core is closed in with concrete. The concrete is poured all around the reactors in layers that make sure the concrete does not for any reason bubbles. Because if it bubbles, it makes the concrete easy to crack. You've probably heard of 3 Mile Island, which was a power plant that went wrong. The accident was attributed to mechanical failure and operator confusion. Had the operators known what was happening, they could have activated the emergency cooling system and everything would have been okay. Now let me tell you about the benefits of nuclear power plants. According to wisegeek.org, the most important benefit would have to be that power plants are very environmental friendly and let off little to no emissions. The amount of carbon and other harmful pollutants that are emitted are very low when compared to other power plants. Efficiency and availability are another huge advantage to having power plants. A small amount of nuclear material can produce a very lot of energy. Since uranium is used for the fuel and uranium is found naturally in the earth, the cost will not be fluctuate. This in turn keeps the price of nuclear energy very low. Building costs and operations are another benefit to nuclear power plants. Uranium is relatively inexpensive, although the cost of processing it and disposing of the waste after has been used to add to the cost. This means that nuclear power plants are pretty cheap to operate. They are expensive to build, however, because of the special materials and safety features that are required. To quickly sum up things, nuclear power plants are very safe and cheap to operate. The parts to a nuclear power plant are very simple, and if the proper safety standards are followed, there will be no problem with operating one. If we use more nuclear energy, we will not only save money, but we will also help preserve the environment. Thanks.